September is almost here, and if this summer has been anything to go by, live concerts are back. People are eager to get out and take in some great live entertainment. Winnipeg's GroundSwell has been an organization that has been a national leader in showcasing new music, new composers, and new ways of interacting and thinking about music. Showcasing top-tier performers, very often in conjunction with multimedia elements, their concerts are immersive, thought-provoking, and are always events that should not be missed. Starting in September, GroundSwell will kick off their 2022-2023 season, and from what I have read, this is going to be another amazing season. Joining me here in our Classic 107 studios to talk about GroundSwell's upcoming season, I am joined by the Executive Director of GroundSwell, David Scott. Hi, David. Good to have you here.
Great. How you doing? It's great to be here. I haven't been here since February of 2020.
Yeah, I know. It's nice to actually have you here in person. So last year was GroundSwell's 30th anniversary as an organization. How did last season go? And does this season feel a little bit more secure for you because of the easing of restrictions?
Yeah, I think it does feel that way. I mean, I think we're either naively or cautiously optimistic about this coming season. Last season was interesting because we did plan 6 live concerts, and for our 30th anniversary, we had actually 30 events planned for the year. And I'm glad to report that we actually managed to pull off 24 events. So we had to cancel cancel 3 concerts. So we had all these outreach and online things last year. So I think it was pretty successful in that sense. But for the year coming, we've got 6 concerts again planned. Some are kind of left over from last year and actually from the year before, and we'll get into that maybe a bit. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty optimistic. But there are still a lot of people coming from out of town, so that's always difficult, right? We just don't know. So.
Especially with flights and the whole airport situation in Toronto and the rest of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
The season looks amazing. How long has it been in the making, and when did programming for this season start?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question because actually our big core grant from the Canada Council is actually on a 4-year cycle. So the season that we're in, the 22-23 season, we're just about to start, was actually planned in kind of broad strokes in 2018. So the 2019-20 season was the first season of our 4-year cycle, and then we all know what happened in 2020. Yeah. And so that 4-year trajectory, which typically gets less specific the further out you go, but that trajectory got messed up by 2020-21, which we didn't do any concerts. And then we're still kind of cleaning up from that cycle, but I'm already gearing up to write grants for next season. So we've come to the end of our official Canada Council 4-year cycle. We're not applying for another 4-year cycle, but we are looking at next year to kind of, we've cleared fingers crossed, we'll clear the backlog this year, add a couple of new things, and then next year it'll be a whole new slate. So that's a very long answer to a pretty simple question, but basically we operate in 4-year cycles. So. Yeah.
I want to get right to it. There's a lot going on in this upcoming season. Like you said, there are 6 concerts. The first concert is on September the 21st with Ensemble Telemark. What can you tell us about this concert?
Well, this is one of the ones that was really hit hard by the pandemic. So a bit of backstory, because it's actually a 2-phase project. And we started this in 2017. This project. So we got funding in 2018-19 for the first phase, which was to commission 4 Canadian composers. And those composers went to Marseille to work with Ensemble Telemark, which is this 11-piece band that we're bringing. And so the pieces were premiered and workshopped in Marseille. So that was the first chunk of this. And that got done in, I think it was 2018-19. And then in the second phase was to have Ensemble Telemark come to Canada, so kind of a reciprocal. Exchange. And they were going to go to Winnipeg, Toronto, and Montreal. And that would have been in, let's see, I have to have notes for this. It was planned for 2020-21. And then that got moved to 21-22. Right. And then our partners changed a little bit in Toronto and Montreal. So now this year, in 22-23, we're bringing Ensemble Telemark to do 3 concerts in Winnipeg. And so one is a school concert with Collège Louis Riel, and that's on the 20th of September. Then we'll do a public concert here at Cirque Molière. And then we're doing a concert in Brandon. So we're taking the group out to Brandon. So there's 3 concerts for Ensemble Telemark, 2 of which are public.
Right.
One in Winnipeg, one in Brandon.
Yeah, and the Brandon one's happening on September the 22nd at the Lauren Watson Recital Hall, which is a great, great space.
Yeah.
There's going to be 4 composers on the program, including a piece by the curator for the program, Jim Hiscott. Do you know anything about Jim's piece, or?
I don't actually. You'll have to just come and find out. But it was premiered in Europe, so this will be a Canadian premiere on our concert. And the other composers are Rita Ueda, from Vancouver, and Becca Sims from Toronto, and James O'Callahan from Montreal. So it's a nice, very eclectic mix of repertoire and even demographically, right? I mean, age of composers and gender and stuff. So it'll be a really good concert, I think.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so the second concert for the season is happening on October the 18th at the Art Gallery. It's the Standing Wave Ensemble. Who are they? And what is this concert about?
Well, it's a 6-piece group from Vancouver, and they've been around for close to 30 years, I believe, and they've commissioned a ton of music over the years. And this concert is curated by Gord Fitzell, one of our permanent curators. And what's really special, I think, about this concert is we commissioned, I believe it was last year, but I'm getting my years mixed up now, but I think it was last year we commissioned 2 local emerging female composers, Rebecca Schroeder and Chiara Nathaniel. And those were GroundSwell commissions for our 30th anniversary. And so they're going to have their pieces played in Manitoba for the first time. The pieces were actually premiered in Vancouver last year, and we have videos on our website of those. But it's nice to work with some younger emerging composers, and that was part of our 30th anniversary initiative last year. So,
and from what I've read, the Standing Wave Ensemble, they're like an incredible ensemble, and they've commissioned like more than 100 works by various composers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's quite amazing, really.
So it's the real deal. Okay, so that concert, once again, is happening on October the 18th at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. And then we have the third concert called Transformation, and it's featuring Megumi Masaki. Can you tell us about this concert?
Yeah, so I'm sure your listeners know Megumi is a pianist who's in Brandon, works at Brandon University. And she does an amazing kind of multimedia interactive electronic and piano thing. And so this year she's got 4 very interesting pieces. And one of them actually commemorates the internment of Japanese citizens. It's the anniversary. I think it's the, I forget, 60th anniversary or something. But it's a very interesting program, and it's going to be all multimedia and kind of very responsive, tactile interaction with the pianist. So that's there's this interesting piece by Keith Hamill. It's called Piano Games. Apparently, do you know anything about this piece? I was just reading. It's the first live video game controlled by pianist and the piano. Yeah, that's right. That's the interactive part. But this whole gaming culture, right, which is something that's completely foreign to me, really, except through my kids who weren't particularly into it, but it's huge all over the world, right? And so I think this will be a really interesting take on that, bringing that into the concert hall.
Mm-hmm. So once again, we get the multimedia side of things. The fourth concert is called Duo d'Entre Deux, and it's curated by Gord Fitzell. It's taking place on November the 29th at the West End Cultural Center. 2 saxophonists, right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so it's billed as kind of improvisation and electronics with saxophones, and also something called acrobatic performance techniques. Now, I don't think that means circus necessarily. I don't think they're going to be juggling. I think that is basically virtuosity is what they mean there. And the duo is Nick Zulek and Tommy Davis, and they'll be joined by a Montreal DJ, Miriam Boucher, or Boucher probably, eh?
Yeah.
Boucher.
Mm-hmm.
And here again, we have another GroundSwell commission, and that's by a former Brandon student. He did a master's at Brandon University, Louis Ramirez, and he's now, I think he's studying in Toronto, or he's just finished in Toronto. So he's writing a new piece right now for this concert. So that'll be really exciting too. I mean, he's emerging. He's fully professional as a composer, but sort of just on the edge of emerging as a professional. So,
and once again, that concert's curated by Gord Fitzel. And then we come to the fifth concert, Toninato Thiessen, Winter City Speaks. What can you tell us about this duo?
Well, I should have mentioned that Meg Musaki is, so our second concert this season, she's one of our guest curators this year. And Jennifer Thiessen is our other guest curator. So the Toninato Thiessen duo is Ida Toninato from Montreal, and Jen Thiessen she's from here, and she was in Montreal, and now she's back.
Now she's back, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great addition, or a great infusion of energy and enthusiasm in our community, so I really appreciate that. But it's a very unusual combination of viola d'amore and baritone sax, right? So they combine field recordings and voices and live processing and other text in a kind of an improvisatory full experience, and it's really exploring this idea of winter. So that's partly why Jen wanted to put it at that time of year, the sort of mid-February, and I shiver to think about it at this point, but it's inevitable, I guess. And
I was doing some reading about the duo. This is apparently their second collaboration, and they've actually been nominated for a 2019 Juno for their album The Spaces Between. So this is really something, and like you say, that pairing of viola d'amore and baritone saxophone sounds really great. And then the last concert of the season is called Hard Thread Collective, Bloody Jack, and it's curated by Michael Matthews, and it makes sense because...
Yeah, so it's the world premiere of a large-scale song cycle by Michael Matthews, and the song cycle is settings of poetry by Dennis Cooley, who of course was at the U of M for years, and he's still around in Winnipeg. And it really explores, I mean, his book, Bloody Jack, is like an exploration of this true historical figure, Bloody Jack Kravchenko, who was a kind of a Manitoba outlaw and villain. And so Michael Matthews drew on that poetry. So this piece is about 45 minutes long, and it'll be premiered by Dawn Brooke Weens, the soprano, and Laura Lowen, the pianist. Now, the Hard Thread Collective is kind of a new thing. Last year, as part of our 30th anniversary, we had a partnership with Flipside Opera, and they were producing, part of the partnership is they wanted to make a film of selections of songs from that song cycle, and so they did that, and so they've branded that nest of activity the Hard Thread Collective, because you've got a filmmaker, you've got a composer and poet and performers, etc. So they wanted to kind of make it a little bit bigger. So that's really where the Hard Thread Collective comes from.
And is there going to be video shown in the concert?
I believe so. And there's also a historian who does a kind of a commentary on the legacy of Jack Kravchenko. So it's going to be an interesting. I'm not sure what the video is going to be, but there's a whole historic component. Originally, we talked about this ages ago. With the singers and with the composer about having the premiere at the Vaughan Street Jail, because it's part of the kind of tour of the historic buildings in Winnipeg. It didn't quite work out. I don't think there's a piano in there, for one thing. But that was the original idea, was to have it in that kind of a location. But this will be really interesting because it's kind of plays on something we did last year as well as a collaboration. So
for our listeners, that concert, GroundSwell 6, the Hard Thread Collective Bloody Jack, is happening at the Winnipeg Art Gallery and on April the 27th. So, David, those are the 6 concerts. They sound so good. All of the concerts start at 7:30 at whatever venue they're at. How much is it to see each one of the concerts?
Well, this is something we try. It's one of the new things we tried last season, and that's we've adopted a pay what you can, how you can strategy. And instead of doing early bird tickets, 50% off is what we used to do for early bird season tickets, and then different increments. You could go to 2 concerts. That's the usual thing. We just decided to open it wide open and just say, we want to remove barriers for people. Allow people to experience something that they may have heard about, but they don't want to shell out $25 for. So it's pay what you can. Through our website, you can go to Eventbrite, and there's tickets in $5 increments. So you can get a $5 ticket or a $30 ticket, and they're all the same. I mean, we don't put the $5 tickets over in some dark...
In the nosebleeds.
That's
yeah.
right. That's right. So it's all the seats are the same, but you can choose what you want to pay. And if you don't have access to a credit card or whatever, you can just come and drop $5 in the bin on the way in. So we're not really selling tickets. It's pay what you can and how you can, and it worked super well last year actually. When I did even with just 3 concerts, when I did the average over the season, it was actually higher than what it has been historically on average. So because we usually would have student rates and seniors rates and adult rates, and so we're really pleased with it. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of people ask me about it, funders included. They were quite excited about it and saying it's a really bold move, but it's an interesting take on things. And so we'll see how it goes, but we're pretty pleased so far.
Yeah.
Personally, I was really skeptical. I just didn't like the idea of it.
But if it works, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with the GroundSwell season, there's not only the 6 concerts, there's also the Linked and Learn series of events. Can you talk about these 2 elements in particular for this upcoming season?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we kind of split our offerings, I suppose, into 3 categories: GroundSwell Live, Learned, and Linked. And so Live is obviously the live concerts where you go and you see a live concert. Learn is outreach and education, and so that's a whole nest of activity that varies from year to year. And then Linked is online or on the radio, essentially. So there's kind of 3 different packets of information, and they overlap to some extent. But as far as Learn, the education and outreach, last year we really went to town on that. I mean, we did about 15 outreach activities all told. And this year we're pulling back a little bit. I mean, really the focus this year is on live concerts, but we're planning to do an emerging electroacoustic composers competition. That'll be after Christmas sometime. And then we have ongoing relationships with the Winnipeg Film Group and Send and Receive. And new last year, it was a relationship with the WSO and their Sistema program. So we hope to do that again this year. And so that puts a composer into the Sistema fold, working with kids after school in their programs in various schools and creating their own music. So it was super successful last year. We had Melody MacGyver working with us on that. So we'll see how that goes this year. I'm hoping that we can do that. So that's the outreach and education. And then on Linked, we're videotaping all of our concerts. So those will all be online, and there will be no paywall on those. So let's say you can't go to the concert and you go online and you watch it online. I mean, you can watch it for nothing, and that'll be the end of it. But you could also appreciate what you've seen and make a donation to GroundSwell, right? We can't charge a ticket. Charging a ticket and making a donation are 2 different things as far as our bookkeeping, but we can always take a donation. We're a nonprofit organization, right? So you can do that through Canada Helps, but there will be edited video recordings of all of our concerts. So that'll be part of Linked. We've also had quite an initiative in the last couple of years doing archival work. So a number of our concerts over the past 30 seasons have been videotaped, and we've got this massive boxes and boxes of videotape in all different formats, VHS and beta even. And we had all that digitized 2 years ago. And I hired a person locally to kind of go through the digital versions and say, well, we can't use this. This is not broadcast quality. Making a list. So we've put up a few videos from the past, one from 1992 actually, and then others from the 2000s. And we hope to do more of that this year. But digitizing is one piece, but sifting through them is another whole piece
right.
of work, and then deciding, and then curating, and then cutting it into shape. You know what that's like. You do that every day. So anyway, that's going to be an important part of our linked offerings this year. And also, I mean, I do a radio show every week on 95.9 at the campus radio, U of W campus, and a lot of those programs, it's an hour a week, 2:00 on Mondays. A lot of those programs reference our programming, so they'll be linked to what we're offering on the concert stage and other platforms. But there's also themes that I tackle. But that's 52 hours of new music programming a year, which is actually a fairly significant chunk of programming for the organization. And certainly during the pandemic, that was the mainstay of what we did that year.
Yeah, right.
You know? So it was actually, it made me really realize that it's a very important platform for the organization, and it's completely wide open. We don't have sponsors saying, "Oh, you can't play Xenakis." Come on,
Yeah. The year sounds so vibrant. Where can people go to find out more details about this season's concerts and other events?
Well, we're just reworking our website, but if you go to gswell.ca, that'll kind of get you where you need to go. All the concerts are in there. Those are all done in terms of our rebuild, and then that all links out to Eventbrite, and that's probably the best place if you have credit card access to get tickets, and also there's a lot of information in Eventbrite as well. So.
And for our Classic 107 listeners, I'll embed a direct link to the GroundSwell site on our website, classic107.com, so you can go straight there and donate and check out some of the amazing things that GroundSwell is offering. David, this season sounds so amazing, and again, it is nice to have somebody actually here in studio with me doing an interview. It's a wonderful thing. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today about this upcoming season. It sounds fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Glad to be here.